everyone and welcome to the Anime Exterior. My name's James Downton and today we're going to be talking about episode 2 of Dr. Stone, the anime series, entitled King of the Stone World. So, we start off by having a little recap of episode 1, seeing how we're in the situation that we're currently in, and how Senku and Taiju have gotten along, and then we head over to Yuzuriha in an attempt to revive her using the fluid that was created at the end of last episode. After realising that she's naked and having a whole funny gag about it, really poor phrasing there, but we'll continue, Taiju opts to carry her back to the camp to basically dress her up before reviving her. However, because they're in the stone world, the food chain has been altered, and humans are no longer at the top, and they're now at the mercy of wildlife, especially in this episode as they're chased by lions. And as a result, they have no other choice but to restore somebody who can fight for them, because it's told that Taiju basically has got a lot of stamina and is heavily built and is a big oaf, but he's never actually hit someone since he was like really little. He's always been the one defending, and Senku's obviously the brain, so they need someone who can fight. So they end up reviving a guy named Tsukasa, who is known as the strongest primal high schooler. Now when they keep saying this, like the strongest primal high schooler, I always think of Danganronpa, because they always had ridiculous sort of like titles for that, but oh well. And he is ridiculously strong, especially in this episode, as straight away from being released from his imprisonment, he beats down basically a pack of lions with his bare hands. Oh, and he's butt naked. So there's that as well. Obviously, because the whole joke had to have some meaning behind it later on. Which I'm surprised they actually showed his behind. But oh well. And throughout the episode, we see him do kind of impossible things. Like he outruns some wild boars and then ends up kicking them in the face. He jumps from off a tree branch and grabs a bird or a duck or something mid-air. And breaks his neck while hanging from the other tree to catch himself. He does a lot of ridiculously weird stuff in this episode that just is there to showcase how primal and how strong he actually is in this current set and environment. So let's talk about Tsukasa as a character. From what we know so far, his design seems pretty good, but what is up with the amount of ponytails on the back of his head? I mean, if Senku ever got around to creating a product of L'Oreal within the stone world, then Tsukasa has to advertise for it. I mean, with that hair, he's worth it. And at first, Tsukasa seems like a genuinely good person. He always offers to help out and says to Senku that, no one has to fight anymore because he's there. They won't go hungry because he can catch a ridiculous amount of meat and fish and everything else. However, as the episode progresses, we slowly see him turn more and more sinister, to the point of where he kills someone while they're still petrified. Now, Tsukasa's view on the world seems to stem from his childhood, from his past, as we get shown some form of backstory involving him. Although it's not directly stated to be him, we can kind of, put two and two together. Don't have to be Senku level smart to figure that out, but you gotta be a little bit smarter than Taiju. Anyway, he's on the beach collecting seashells because he wants to help his sister who's having an operation, and she loves the Little Mermaid. So a young Tsukasa is seen picking up shells in order to make this necklace. However, he is then confronted with a drunk adult who basically is said to own the beach, and basically beats him to an inch of his life so that, he's not recognisable to anyone around him. This shapes his views to be quite warped and quite twisted, as we see later on in the episode that his views on the world is very different from Senku's. Okay, so then this kind of transitioned nicely into the main item of the episode, and that is seashells. More specifically, calcium carbonate, as it's used for quite a lot of good useful stuff. First off, agriculture. So basically this can be used to create and to aid soil in becoming better. Second is construction. So while heating this up with sand, you get something called mortar, which then is able to form a type of cement for building houses or for building furnaces. So very useful. And the third and most important is soap. By gathering sodium carbonate from seaweed and mixing it with oil, the reaction creates soap. A super important item, as getting sick within this stone world would mean game over. I mean, there's only 3 people alive at the moment, and if one of them gets sick, I think, they're not going to be able to treat each other, easily. Their immune systems is probably shot, and there might be some different kind of illnesses in this stone world that have developed over the years since humanity has been petrified. Now, before explaining all the uses of calcium carbonate, we actually get told by Senku that there are 4 ways to use this item. But Senku backtracks at the end of this and states that he only said 3. And this is because after a conversation with Tsukasa, he starts to doubt him. After Tsukasa basically states that he admires Senku for his knowledge and believes that Senku can create a technological society from basically where they're at now. Senku did have a really nice line in this sort of scene where they're both talking to each other, because he states that only someone with a hidden agenda would compliment someone to their face. And Senku Tsukasa even just basically says, nope, I just admire you. However, the 4th could actually be for creating things like plastic, paper, helping with plants, and coating. However, I do think that this is actually going to be combined with another substance that would help give Senku an advantage over Tsukasa in upcoming episodes. Especially after you consider what we see after this scene, which is basically showing us the drastic differences between Senku's views and Tsukasa's views. So this whole scene of Senku being a bit skeptical of Tsukasa is rightly so, as again, we're told that Senku's true intentions is that he wants a world that is free and is not, is not ruled by the rich, because he believes that if we start reviving everybody, then eventually the rich will be grateful, but in time they will turn around and say, you need to pay your taxes, you need to do this, do that, you're basically slaves again at this point. I'm in charge, do what I say. However, Senku obviously wants to revive everyone using science, so the two have conflicting views. And this is where the episode basically ends, so hopefully within the next few episodes we'll see a bit more confrontation between the two. So we actually have the typical kind of brute force versus brains, because obviously everything that Senku throws at Tsukasa is going to be science related, and everything that Tsukasa throws at Senku will be brute force related. But from this episode, we can kind of gather that Tsukasa isn't entirely stupid. Like, in terms of smartness, although again there's only 3 people alive at this point, Tsukasa is the second smartest person alive. Not really saying much if the third is Taiju, but oh well. So then finally we get an opening in this episode, and the music is very nice and catchy. The effects and the animation within it is pretty good as well. I like the introduction to all the characters that we see, and the art style and the colour palettes for the characters are really great. Considering I'm used to seeing them in the manga, then it's nice to see what their kind of hairstyles and patterns and colour scheme is like. Pretty cool. Now, animation throughout this episode, again, was pretty good. There was a little bit of jankiness partway through, but nothing to complain drastically about. Sounds and effects were all great. Voice acting was spot on. I could be wrong, but I think Tsukasa's voice actor is the same person who does Dio from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. It's just that when he first emerged from his stone imprisonment, I don't know, Dio's voice just kind of went off in my head. I don't know if that's just a connection between the 2 characters, or if that's actually the same voice actor. I'll have to look that up later on. If I'm right, I'll put it in the edit. So, yeah, basically, all in all, this episode was quite... It had a lot packed into it. It wasn't so scientific heavy, but we did learn a bit of science. And at the same time, we got some great animation and good sound effects, and we were introduced to Tsukasa as a character, who, if you have read the manga again, then you'll know what a good character that he is, and they build him up quite nicely in this episode. I like to see some confrontation between the two, and I want to see where that goes. I'm quite interested in seeing how it does. So then, the comedy in this episode, again, all came from Taiju. The whole faces and, him just being simple. All of that sort of stuff, like him introducing himself as a simple one. Not really that funny. It gets old after a while. But, it didn't need all that comedy in this episode, as it was a character build-up episode. So, that was all pretty good. So overall, I actually enjoyed this episode. It was pretty good for a second episode. Now, I'm going to be a bit skeptical on the next one, because I always give anime a 3-episode rule. But if it ends up being good, then I shall carry on watching this series. But from what I've seen so far, I'm enjoying it. Let me know if you guys are enjoying it as well, down in the comment section below. Tell me your thoughts on this episode. Did you like it? Do you like Tsukasa? All the good stuff. Anyway, that's going to do it for this review. If you've enjoyed, smash that like button, subscribe if you're new so you never miss a video from me, and until next time, I hope you have an amazing day, and, well, keep it anime. I'll see you guys later. Bye for now.